Party people, welcome to another edition of For the Players. My name is Kyle Murdock. I am joined by the usual suspects, my friends on this team at Proxima Studio, Harvey Newman, who is the head of the studio. Fellas, as usual, how you all doing? It's been a while.
Good. Yeah. Good. Feeling a little fresher.
Okay. No, since last we spoke, as usual, what's been going on? What have you been playing? Any new tech you want to talk about, or things that have caught your eye in the sphere of video games?
So I want to give a shout out to the game Dave the Diver. So I saw an I saw an IGN piece. I played the game and I thought it was really good. The game mechanics, the whole like how they kind of like. It's so simple, but yet so well done. And most good games are made that way, right? So if you think about Overwatch, if you think about Half-Life that we talked about in the last episode, it feels simple. And when you play it, it feels effortless. Yet what goes on behind the scenes is really complex. And the game director actually did an interview with IGN. They asked him a bunch of questions about the game mechanics, how he came up with the idea and all that stuff. And it was really, really awesome to see. Is another piece. I'm always looking for inspiration from other studios that are doing a good job. And the best thing about it is that Life of P and also Dave the Diver are probably the first two games that came out that are narrative based out of South Korea, because in South Korea, the freemium games are so huge that basically they took over everything, right? So they're not used to having narrative based games. So having these two games being so popular just means that I think a lot more games are going to come out that are going to rock our socks from South Korea. And I cannot wait for it, because if it's anything like Japan, we are in for a treat. Board games are the best tool to teach you how to make video games. There is no better tool, especially if you play games such as Warhammer or D&D, that Dungeons and Dragons and things like that, role-playing games. Like there's no better game to show you like structure and narrative and balancing of players and enemies and things. Like you should absolutely study them. There's many YouTube videos out there about how you can learn how to play games, how to develop games based on board games. Most of the time it's just a piece of paper and like a pencil, and you can actually develop a game that way. There's also card games that are really good at doing that as well. So yeah, it's a great tool for anybody that is thinking about building their own video games. It's basically the same thing, it's just more complex video games.
Well, yeah, it's funny you all mentioning, Harvey, you said that that's a good template for anyone creating a visual or video game. I had my first, speaking of confessions, this is actually something I did do for the first time. A couple weeks ago or a couple months ago, I was on tour and I played my first D&D campaign on tour. Yeah. So
how awesome was it?
It was cool. It wasn't like one of the main D&D games. It was an offshoot called Lords of Waterdeep. I don't even know if someone hopefully watching the show or listening will be like, oh, I know that game. But it was cool for me because I'd always heard about the campaign, and I've actually been to conventions and seen like really notable like stars sit on stage and then broadcast it the way people go to like esports gaming and watch the campaign. It's like a big deal, and it was a packed venue in Texas, and I was like, I can't believe I'm here watching it the same way I'd be watching a sports game. People are just watching this D&D campaign play out. It's huge.
Crazy,
and,
man.
It was fun. It was fun. The RPG lover in me really had a lot of fun. And I actually won. I almost won, which was nice too.
Nice.
It didn't hurt that I almost won. So I was like, I want to play again. Next time we have a lot of time. So anyway, yeah.
We need to start a D&D like campaign here at Proxima at some point. Whenever we actually have some more time, we'll be like, let's do that. Start a campaign that lasts the whole duration of the game,
right? So
we can tell the story of our D&D campaign. It's gonna be great.
It's so interesting. RPGs. I feel like, especially as a person out here in the West who've played RPGs, like it took me a long time to realize there were different subgenres of RPGs, because what we got. Especially growing up playing Square, before there's Square Enix, when it was Square Soft, it was mostly like Japanese traditional RPG, like the turn-based stuff. And then I started really getting into Shining Force and Tactics, and like those are my favorite RPGs, the war simulation, like tactical kind of RPGs. Then there's the action adventure RPGs, like even with Final Fantasy the remake, how they got rid of it's like an active time gauge now, like you know, and it just shows you that the East is kind of like, I don't want to say kowtowing to the West, but they've just like, okay, this is what most of people want, more frenetic kind of like, you know, so we're gonna get that. So I don't know, it's interesting.
Completely. I actually think that this boxing of things, like it's a good thing for the industry, because it kind of like shows that we're growing. Right. Like putting things in boxes means that there's like a category for it. But I kind of miss a little bit of the times. Once again, we're gonna go veer off into another conversation. But I kind of miss the times where there was no boxes for games. I keep talking about this with like, you know, like if you think about it, on PlayStation 1 or Nintendo, like when you played Mario, or played Donkey Kong, or played Zelda, there was no like what type of game is this?
Right.
It's just a game. Or Metroid was a first-person shooter,
right?
But there was no. But it was you never called it a first-person shooter. You never called GoldenEye a first-person shooter when you were playing it,
right? Because
it was just a game,
right?
And that's it. And I think, to me, and we need to make an episode about this. To me, I think boxing these things, even though it's beneficial for the games industry, is kind of like almost like a detriment for the creativity, because there's no more Parappa the Rapper games. There's no more Jet Set Radio games that don't fit in any box. You know, what do you call a Parappa the Rapper game? Is it a musical? Is it like a coordination game? Is it
a rhythm-based game? I don't know.
Rhythm game?
Yeah.
Like, it's very difficult to box that game, because it came at the time there was no boxes before, right?
Yeah.
And I think we need more of that. We need more of those games that you go like, where does this fit? Yeah.
Well, today, fellas, we're gonna kind of flip the script for the first couple episodes of this of this show thus far, and the goal is obviously long term. We're always gonna have people featured, you know, usually on our team, but even outside too, you know, to come and give perspective and talk about the game, their gaming experience and stuff. But today is different in the sense of usually I'm the one asking, you know, you all the questions, and now I've been told prior to recording, because I was like, I don't really have anything to talk about today, and Harvey was like, that's great, because are going to interview me, I guess is the plan, or ask me
that's
some stuff.
Right.
So
I'm gonna flip the script.
Oh, this is great. Okay, so I am from Washington, D.C. I'm a native Washingtonian, which you have to be very careful, especially for the gaming industry, because when you say Washingtonian, a lot of, you know, the games are in Seattle or in Washington, Redmond, Washington, but I'm on the East Coast, like where the government resides. Yay! So,
oh wow,
yeah, but that's the games. Yes. Oh my God, that would be. So I didn't live too far from Bethesda, and actually, before I get back into it, it's like I'm just going off a tangent. One of my ex-neighbors in Maryland was the weapons designer for Fallout, and I used to ask that dude every morning. I was seeing him walking his dog. I was like, so you created the Fat Man? You created like all these, like you created the rocket launcher. It was the Rock-It launcher. I was like just enamored. This dude was like, his name was Dane. He was like so cool. He was like, yeah, man. Like he probably got so tired of me that he would just probably time walking his dog at a different time, because I would always be out at the same time walking my dog, and I would just pick his brain. But so anyway, thank you, Dane, for tolerating me for the 2 years I was there, asking you every morning, trying to get insight about New Vegas and everything. So yes, I'm from Washington, D.C. I grew up. My uncle was a pretty like famous radio disc jockey in the area, and it kind of at an early age I was like, I want to be like him. So I got into communications and audio, but my path took me down where my uncle was a TV and radio personality in front of the camera. I kind of realized that I like to be behind the camera or behind the boards, the audio board, and I got into just working in sound. I went to college and majored in audio production. Wound up getting a master's in audio technology actually a few years ago. So I just really love anything related to sound, which is why if you follow me on socials, it's Kyle Creates Audio, and it's not just because the K and C alliteration. I really do like audio and sound. I like storytelling through sound, because I feel like if you can do that, the sky's the limit. Because if usually you're used to seeing things and having the thing visually tell you a story, but sound is so important to bolstering what you see. But beyond that, if you strip away that and you're able to kind of get across whatever you're trying to convey through sound exclusively, that's amazing. So that's kind of like that's my passion,
That's so cool. So I have a follow-up question to that, because that was a good answer. Just so you don't escape.
No, I'm not gonna escape. You act like I'm gonna say, all right, fellas, like bye, like peace. Like, no, I'm here. Yeah. This is a great episode, fellas.
That's enough about myself.
No. I'm here. I'm here for it.
So I know, like, before we get into games, because obviously this is about games, so I want to, for people to understand that Kyle was also, when we first met many years ago, 20 plus years ago, I think at this point, right?
Yes.
Kyle was actually a hip hop producer, artist from a group called Panacea.
Yes.
And if you actually notice, on his right, my left, there's a little poster right there of the artwork of his group.
Right.
And it was a big deal. And I'm just gonna fulfill this because obviously, for background. And you guys were signed to Ruckus when they kind of went back again, right?
Yeah, we were signed to Ruckus, yeah.
So I grew up in the 90s with a lot of hip hop, and there was this brand, this label called Ruckus Records. They actually signed people like Eminem and Common and Talib Kweli and all these other people, Mos Def, and they were huge in the, for people that were underground hip hop, they were huge to me. So there was a rebirth of Ruckus Records in around early 2000s. So they signed Kyle's group as one of those groups to kind of come up. And another one was the Procussions, which is another group that is amazing. Shout out to the Procussions, because they're absolutely amazing. Stro Elliott and Mr. J. Medeiros and stuff. So I followed Kyle. I had a hip hop blog, and Kyle was incredibly nice to us. He was one of the most down to earth, most amazing person to deal with. And artists can be sometimes very picky and very diva, no matter where they are. And Kyle was never that. Kyle was never that. Kyle was always the real one, always there for us, helping us in anything we needed, helped us mix our mixtapes that we put together with different artists and stuff. So can you tell people a little bit about your journey as an artist? Because that is actually important here as well. Oh,
man. Yeah, it is. It's pretty amazing that, that was, so Panacea, I started almost 20 years ago. With Raw Poetic, he's he's MC and my collaborative partner. And it's funny because back in the days of MySpace, I guess to date ourselves, MySpace is how we got our record deal. Someone found us on MySpace, and that led to us getting eventually signed with Ruckus, who was distributed by Sony. So it was amazing. We had a pretty major major deal, right? But back on MySpace, you remember how you could put a lot of people would put quotes and descriptions in the top over the information. So for Panacea, I used to put "When Tribe Called Quest meets Final Fantasy." Literally, that was the hook. And I'm sure people were probably what the hell? What are you mashing up here, man? But it was only because we had sensibilities of that era of hip hop, Tribe Called Quest, De La Soul, very jazzy and dope hip hop. But me and Jason are nerdy dudes, you know what I mean? And but the Final Fantasy aspect came from Kurt. Raw Poetic he read a lot of Kurt Vonnegut. He was a big poet, really into sci-fi and space. Which is still something he continues in the themes of his own albums today. And so it was the mix of just fantasy versus the hip hop, the bridge of where that meets. And I guess it kind of worked. I don't know if that was the thing that when people stumbled upon our page were what? I gotta hear this now. We weren't rapping about casting spells and stuff that kind of chocobos and shit,
chocobos,
chocobo hip hop. But yeah, so we had Panacea, had the record deal. Part of it was, I guess, we got some attention. We got actually a lot more love over in the UK. One year one of our albums got album of the year in this magazine, which I still don't, I guess it's pretty big in the UK, called Hip Hop Connection. which is equivalent for those who
remember.
listen in the States to the Source magazine. Hip Hop Connection, I was told, was like the equivalent. And we beat out like Kanye West, Talib Kweli, Ghostface Killer. Like our album was the #1 voted album. And it's funny because our album sales was the complete opposite of everyone I just mentioned. Like we had a lot of critical acclaim, but unfortunately critical acclaim doesn't always translate to coin. You know, it's like we had a great, we had a lot of level up, but we didn't have a lot of like money to buy items. And I'm trying to video game and gamify it a little bit.
I like, obviously I don't know if you're off too much of games, but like, you know what it was, at least from my perspective, being a fan.
Yeah, why did you like us, man?
It was the originality of the sound and lyrics. It just came across as so original for the time. You know, like for example, when you listen to a game like for example, you know, Samurai Champloo or Cowboy Bebop, for those that actually like watch anime out there. Like those are anime, but just like every other anime, if you really think about it, there's been like samurai before, there's been like sci-fi, like, you know, with spaceships before. The only differentiator here is just the music. The soundtrack was hip hop, was jazz, and then the second one was like Samurai Champloo was more like hip hop and jazz, right? And as soon as you actually change the dynamic there, all of a sudden the show sounds and looks much more different, and it comes across much more authentic. And that's what Panacea had that nobody else had. And even for us, it was our favorite album of the year, where every time you guys released an album, because that sound that you had, and you know what I mean? Like, and then the lyrics as well came across incredibly, like, you know, deep and, you know, off the time, and without like swearing much or without actually kind of like, like, you know, talking bad about others or anything like that. At that point, you have to remember gangster hip hop was absolutely 50 Cent and the G Unit and all these other people were actually top of their game. So for you guys to come across and just keeping it real.
And we were definitely keeping it real because we did not have any of that. We weren't.
So that's what it is.
We were dudes from the suburbs of, Jason is from the suburbs of Virginia. I'm from the suburbs of Maryland. We used to just say we were from Washington, D.C. because it seemed like a cooler, bigger city. Most people aren't going to know Silver Spring, Maryland. It doesn't, but Washington, D.C. sounds cool, you know? But yeah, we rapped about what we weren't like, we're nerds, you know, to this day. Like I talked to this day, like me and Jason still talk about like what Final Fantasy VII and playing through it and who found what summons and stuff. Like it's crazy, like almost 30 years later. So we were just rapping about what we knew about, and we were very imaginative and very definitely leaned heavy on fantasy, which is why I think, and that came from being a gamer, and why it like playing video games growing up was kind of like, why am I not, when I play a Final Fantasy or any kind of RPG, I was like, why am I hearing the same recycled electronic or Japanese kind of music? Time. I was like, why can't I hear like something with more rhythmic, like percussive, like a hip hop thing, but just done like more of a score? And so
that's it.
One thing I used to do when there was 2 games I remember playing for, I guess Xbox. They were made by the studio called Mistwalker. One was called Blue Dragon, and the other one was called The Last Odyssey. I think that's right. And they were great. Okay. They were great games, but I used to take my music and put it in as the music when you're exploring the map. So I would be playing. So Blue Dragon was drawn by Akira Toriyama, the guys known for Dragon Ball Z, Chrono Trigger, and all that stuff. So I just remember running around a lot of times, and I would have my beats playing. I was like, this actually works. But I just never had the opportunity. And I used to go on social media like, is anyone ever in need of someone to try to score like a game that maybe likes my style? This is my music. Let me know. And I had a couple times people hit me, but nothing ever came to fruition, which is why when you tell me you were working on a company and the ability to possibly work and do game audio, it was a dream come true. So I know I'm kind of jumping way ahead, but well, for me, it has to be Tribe Called Quest. If you see my tattoo,
Tribe Called Quest all day.
It's very ashy, but
right here as well.
So
right there.
Yeah, look, isn't that crazy? So
right here.
Tribe Called Quest to me is the GOAT. Like they, you know, so like I mean, obviously I got him tattooed on my right arm, so I better love him, right? But that album in particular, Midnight Marauders, which is hanging in the back of Harvey's studio, it was kind of like the blueprint as far as like, I don't know, like those dudes. When I think about hip hoppers and like people I like could model myself after, I thought about them because they just seemed like really cool cats, but instead of being from Maryland, they were from Queens, New York, you know. But they were like relatable in the sense of like they weren't talking about guns and being misogynistic and stuff, but just telling stories and just dope jazzy dudes, you know. De La Soul is another one. De La Soul, rest in peace. Dave, who passed away from De La Soul, that was another one. The Roots, big fan of the Roots. Outkast, you mentioned them, and even beyond hip hop, I guess my favorite producers in music were Quincy Jones, Vangelis, who's known Greek composer and pianist who's known for Chariots of Fire, Blade Runner. He's done the score for those movies, and there's the other guy who's like the triumvirate of producers outside of hip hop that I love is a guy named Ryuichi Sakamoto, who's most known for Japanese composer. Worked on everything from Black Mirror from Netflix, but known for like The Last Emperor. Had a really big group in the 70s called Yellow Magic Orchestra that was like really known for being pioneering in like electronic music. So I don't know, like those are the people that kind of spoke to me that I wound up sampling a lot, because that was the other thing. Most of the Panacea stuff, I leaned into sampling. Everyone knew like the same James Brown and jazz records. I was like, let me just sample like stuff that's like folk music, electronic music, prog rock, like, and those kind of artists. John Anderson, yes, I love all that stuff. Like, so my background, I always say, it's a bad way of saying it. I feel bad, especially now that my daughters are like getting into learning music, but I say I'm a modern musician, which is really my way of saying I don't know how to. My music theory has been learned by ear training and stuff, and by the help of technology. To be very honest with you, but I'm not one of those people who's averse to like when I riff and come up with some motif, I'll give it to someone who can really play, and you know, collaborate with a real like drummer, guitarist, pianist, and I've been thankful to have a lot of those people in my world too. Like, matter of fact, like we've always had live bands in Panacea, so like it was awesome to hear the music I created in this drum machine as like a one-man symphony play. Like, you're playing the bass, you're playing this the chords, you're playing this melody, like you're playing my drums. Like, I always, if you look at any videos of old Panacea performances, I'm usually on stage smiling, because it's surreal to me to hear the music that I created literally in a drum machine and a sampler come to life and be played, and people take the time to learn this stuff, and people say, man, this is dope, as opposed to like, oh my God, this sample is so corny, dude. Like, it's just, you know what I mean? Like, to tell me they think I'm a actually like good producer, it meant a lot. So yeah. So I grew up kind of like, well, this is the era of like when I would buy CDs and cassettes, you would be able to tangibly open up and read track list, right? So I would read what the producer, who they sample, and then if I was able to find out in a magazine if they would have like a producer in a studio, I would be like, what is that sitting behind them? Or find out, or like listen for name drops, because sometimes producers or MCs would be like, so-and-so on the so-and, you know what I mean? They would mention the specific drum machine or like type of equipment. So the one that was like really pervasive when I was coming up in the late 90s was an Kai MPC 2000 XL. MPC standing for, was changed. It used to be MIDI Production Center. Now it's Music Production Center. Made by a Japanese company called Akai, but it started from a guy named Roger Lynn, who created a drum machine, electronic drum machine, which you've heard on Prince. I mean, you name it, any stuff that came out through the 80s that wasn't a real drummer was usually Roger Lynn's drum machine or MPC. So the MPC started being able to add sampling time in each iteration. So I remember this. Going in high school, I didn't have a lot of money, so the money I would save up, I would order from this place in New York called Upstairs Records. I always remember it's so random, because this is the only I ordered a drum machine. It was a package. It was a drum machine, a sampler, and a belt-driven turntable. And if anyone knows a belt-driven, you can't scratch on a belt drive turntable. You need a direct drive turntable. So I used to scratch it and wonder why my scratches didn't sound like DJ Premier or like the people I knew in hip hop. And then, yeah, it was a shit show. So anyway, when I got into college, I continued to like take whatever little money I had and buy some gear. And it wasn't until I got my refund check in college, my junior year, I think, or senior year, I took the money I was supposed to use to pay for where I was living. It was like $2,000 or $2,500, which in '99 or 2000 was a lot of money. You know, I took that money, which was a substantial amount of money, and I remember I skipped class. I was supposed to be going to class. I jumped on the metro, took the bus up to the local music center, and bought the same drum machine that I would see the people I used to idolize, like Pete Rock, DJ Premier, Jay Dilla, the famous producers have. And I had no idea how to work it. I paid for and bought that machine, went home and took off the rest of the week, didn't go to class. And I started making, that was my beat journey. I taught myself how to use I never read the manual, which is a whole nother joke. I used to, actually when we came to England the first time, we were in a studio recording. And I remember the guy who owned the studio used to say RTFM, read the fucking manual. That was like the joke. And I was like, I've never read the fucking manual in my life. Like I've always been like the type to be like, I learned by like trial and error, or file and error as I was calling, because I lost a lot of files not knowing how to fucking save like back in the day. So yeah, that's how I learned. So and it's to this day, a few years ago, I sold my MPC. But then I went and bought one again just to have it. Doesn't even really work, but just to have it. And my plan is at the next place we move, I'm gonna mount it on the wall the same way people mount deer bust and like taxidermy. Yeah. For me, it's an accomplishment because you wouldn't even be talking to me, Harvey, because that MPC model is what I learned to make all the Panacea stuff. All the Panacea albums were done off the same MPC.
Exactly, and a lot of artists feel like you, like Q-Tip, the album Renaissance.
Yes, he was on the front cover with it.
Looking up a line. He actually has it holding like over his head, just to kind of like symbolize that this is him and this is how he makes his music. And all the Tribe Called Quest albums, all the songs that he produced, which have been many. He's an amazing producer. He used that machine, which is great. It's classic.
So yeah, that was my first piece of gear. I've definitely evolved. I still use computers, but it's my computer now. I use a DAW called Pro Tools that I've been using for 25 years too, but it's evolved in how I use it. I used to use it just to engineer, like mix the records. Now I do everything in Pro Tools, like score movies, work on video game sound design for Proxima, make music, So anyway, and I can't wait till we have Johnny, who's our composer, come on, because Johnny uses a different DAW called Logic, which is, so that's a whole nother geeky episode.
Exactly. Shout out to Johnny, because he'll come up here and talk all about music composing. He's an amazing pianist. Oh my god!
That question you asked me, he can say yes. And Johnny is super talented.
He knows.
Yes.
Oh my god, he's
dude.
really, really good.
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, I had one more question for Kyle, but like No, but we can jump into that because it's actually less important. I was just gonna ask like what are Kyle's top 5 soundtracks for games?
I did not expect that. Oh man.
See? Oh my. Are you thinking about this?
Okay. This
is that question that Kyle throws at us about the future.
Damn,
about
that
the
was a good one.
Future.
All right. I'm gonna Final Fantasy. I'm not gonna say 7 because 7 is like always there. I'll say Final Fantasy. Well, in the States it was 3, but I think it was 6 in Japan. And that's the one that had Kefka. And Kefka was the boss. Had like Gao, Cyan, Shadow, Celis. Shadow. It was a huge cat. But the music, just because that game was huge back then. It was a Super Nintendo game, and then it was like, I don't know, I mean, spoiler alert, if you haven't played the game it's been 30 years, so that's a spoiler alert, right? But the game at one point flips from the world of balance to the world of ruin, so a lot of the themes and cues get flipped too, which I thought was like amazing. Yes. Like that person made like a complete very different variation based on the world changing and basically falling to shit. You know what I mean?
Nice.
What's another one?
So that was your number 5?
Yeah.
What's your number 4?
I feel like, damn, I'm just gonna say 5. I can't put them in order, so I'm gonna give you 5. Another one would be Chrono Trigger. Enough said. I mean,
amazing.
Chrono Trigger. God, what's another one that I liked? This is crazy. Did you ever remember a game called Lunar?
Yes.
For Sega,
the one that came out. No, actually, there's a new Lunar that came out recently.
Okay, this is the original RPG back from I think Sega CD. It was a Sega CD game, or I don't know. But
no, it was a thing. It was I think you could just add it on top of the
was it 32X or one of those kind of add-ons?
Yeah.
Anyway, I really like, because it was CD quality. I never that was amazing to me. I'm gonna put Sonic CD, another CD game. Sonic CD has some amazing
Sonic
music.
soundtracks were always the best soundtracks. Oh my god!
And then a 5th game. This is I don't know. This is just in my head because I was playing this game a lot during the pandemic, right when my youngest got into video games. And it's corny, but I had to put something Nintendo in there. And it's not what you all think. It's not going to be a Metroid, a Mario, or Zelda. I'm going to say Yoshi's Crafted World for Nintendo Switch.
Oh, that's great.
Had some great music.
Yeah.
To the point, I still, the other day, I caught my youngest humming, and I was like, is that Yoshi's Crafted World when you go underwater? And she was like, Daddy, like, you almost like, I didn't know she was like amazed that I remember, or like turned off that I remembered it. So I was like,
yeah, exactly.
I remember us humming it as we played, because the game is very co-op. She would just ride on my Yoshi's back the whole time as I like did all the hard stuff. Anyway, so Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy 2, Lunar, what'd I say? Yoshi's Crafted World, and oh man, I forgot the 5th one. What'd I say? Oh, that's embarrassing.
We have to rewind it.
Yeah.
This is why this is recorded.
Yeah, but those, just go back. Those are my 5. I'm pretty sure I said 5. Well, when I met Harvey, as he mentioned, he was running the blog in the UK, The Word is Bond. Shout out to The Word is Bond, Twib, as I like to say. Did Twib, you all ever say that too, Twib? Was it just me? I'm always trying to act
Twib.
Put things
we thought it was internally only that people knew about Twib.
Okay.
Glad that he actually made it outside.
But Harvey and everyone at The Word is Bond. Shout out to Patty, Artie, Camila. Those are the people who come to mind. Yes.
There you go. What is Bond?
They showed so much love to Panacea and even my solo stuff. Matter of fact, I remember it's on YouTube because I looked it up the other day. There's like videos of me that I hosted about like explaining my jobs as like a radio person, an audio engineer, music, and it's just so laughable because it was recorded back in like 2009, and I was like, oh my god, I remember where I lived. The quality, it's like super low res. I looked like a sprite moving the whole time, like, you know what I mean, like
720p.
Yeah, it was more like 480. Lucky if I was
480.
Yeah, it was bad, but anyway. Harvey just showed mad love. Even when I came out later in 2011, I came out with another artist who I produced, still to this day, Megaran, and Harvey came out. It was the first time I met Harvey in person at the London Anime Con, and we hung out. We took you had a camera with you. That's how I knew you were like really.
Yeah.
And then
we came all kitted out.
I didn't even know at that time. You had mentioned in casual conversation that you were into gaming and stuff, like not only into gaming but like worked in the industry. And I don't know, maybe it was like I had to put like a bullet point, like a thumbnail in that, like for my brain, be like, that's someone I should remember moving forward. And I think especially as I move forward in a little bit of the getting in the industry, I was like, wow, this Harvey stands out for a lot of reasons because it doesn't seem like that diverse of an industry.
No, it isn't.
So, I mean, I would just, occasionally pick his brain and see, like, follow him on LinkedIn. And then especially when you started doing your YouTube channel, it was amazing. I'm not even into animation and I follow your channel because it's just inspiring to hear you talk about your journey also, I think no matter what you do, gaming or otherwise, your passion is so like infectious. Like, it's very clear to me that you love what you want to do, and that you want to share your knowledge. And I think that's, as a person who's gotten into education and going back to like my alma mater and teaching, like it's important, especially when you're like one of the very few people who has a seat at the table, to let people know like this is a viable thing. And I want to do my best to leverage what inside stuff I have to the next generation, because I realize I'm not going to be doing this forever, you know? So it behooves me to be able to do that. And I know I get that sense from you as well. So fast forward, just a casual LinkedIn thing was like, by the way, I'm starting my own games company. More than that, 9 months later, here we are. So that's my version of it. If you have one that's better and more succinct, please.
No, that was really well put together. I just think that the only thing I can add is about like Kyle's talent, like everybody in the team's talent is all about like, I think Approxima, I really want to like bring everybody that I either worked previously or enjoy working, or I know they are talented and they have the same kind of attitude. And hopefully with this podcast, you start to understand why we actually gel together and why we are similar in a lot of ways, even though we have different backgrounds. And that's basically how we came together. And Kyle immediately came to mind, because exactly when he mentioned that we kind of like, were like talking in London, I knew that he was into games because he was with Magaran as well. And at that point in time, Kyle didn't actually mention this about his journey musically because he has done so much, but like the 8-bit music scene with merged with hip hop became really big.
Nerdcore is what they call it, which is a whole
nerdcore, exactly. So, yeah. Exactly. So imagine hip hop beats, but just 8-bit. So like sounding like Zelda and all these other things. And Kyle was one of the biggest producers out there making, because he was very niche, but Kyle was really big and he released quite a lot of albums. And he actually released it with Megaran, which is actually this really dope MC. Shout out to Megaran if he sees this. He's really awesome. And he does the best freestyles, Megaran, by the way. He actually goes to shows. We actually went to a live show. He asks everybody for like 5 words and he like does these amazing freestyles and he remembers everything. He's amazing. He told me that he liked games a lot, and then we had a conversation, and then I realized how much you're serious about games, how much you know about RPGs and games and the nerd culture and all that stuff. And to me, I always kept him in mind because I wanted to work with him slightly deeper than I could at that time, because I was just working for a developer at that point. So when we needed a sound designer, somebody to actually design our games, and I actually thought a lot about like the shows that actually kind of like had a big impact to me sound wise, sonic wise, and because I'm also a fan of like A Tribe Called Quest and MF Doom and like Nas and all these other people that I have in my wall. To me, I feel like, just like Kyle mentioned, like representation, in terms of Black people in the industry is not very much. There's not very many of us. And I also think that actually kind of like spills into the music that exists in games. So there's not a lot of, hip hop music. Like, I remember Def Jam Vendetta and all these other people games.
It's so like
the day. But it was just a sliver of time. It lasted like 5 years and that's it. And he ended, right? But they don't come out, those kind of games anymore. And I feel like we can bring some of those vibes back with Kyle's talent and Johnny's talent. And this is when Kyle said yes, I was like super over the moon. But I was fully thinking, these guys are going to tell me I'm too busy for this. No. And I don't really take you serious.
I couldn't say yes fast enough. Like literally, I thought we were having a regular conversation and you started showing me your like craft or the slideshow. I was like, what the fuck? Like, this is amazing. Gaming and music to me are so like, when I think about like Shatterpoint or like very memorable, like vivid moments in my life, like I remember summer of 1995 sitting in my house playing Chrono Trigger while listening to this hip hop group Mobb Deep, and I can almost remember like when Final Fantasy VII came out, like I was listening to Outkast and Tribe Called Quest's last album, so to me they just go hand in hand. And I just like what Harvey was saying, I've always just found it baffling that like when it comes to hip hop, even though hip hop is everywhere now, it's like it's the most ubiquitous, like popularized and profitable form of music, right? And pop music, but it's always relegated to like like basketball or Madden or the Def Jam games. I'm like, why can't I hear a hip hop score in a Final Fantasy? I mean, like, come on, bro. We've done so many Final Fantasies. I get it. And no shades. Like, I love those scores, but after a while, it's like you want to do something that's really going to change it up. Give another genre of music a chance. So anyway,
but games are huge in the Black community, like everywhere around the world. There's like, it's absolutely massive, and I think having more representation, having more of our music. I mean, I remember when Def Jam Vendetta came along, just being able to select your favorite rapper and then like
like Redman it was amazing.
Yeah, with a different soundtrack, it was amazing. It was like, what? This is like 100% Method Man or a Redman or whatever it is. It was great. It was like so cool, and having lost that, I think he's just part. To me, is a result of having underrepresentation in this industry, because nobody was a champion for that side of the industry. So fingers crossed we can be a little bit of that at Proxima as well. But I do think that there's a niche market there that needs to be explored, and hopefully we can be a part of that for sure. It's a great unifier, right? Because like, for example, like, if Kyle and I don't know each other and all of a sudden I'm like, so my favorite group is Tribe, Kyle most likely going to be like, Tribe? You like Tribe? Immediately after that point, they're like, exactly, like,
and I've done that before. Tribe? People are like,
do I like
Tribe? This dude is like too much of a fan. Like, that's a whole new level of commitment. There's a picture, I think I posted in our Slack when I met Q-Tip, and I showed him, and he was like,
"You met Q-Tip?"
Yeah, I met. It's funny. I met all. Rest in peace, Five. I met them all at different points over from college to when I worked in radio. But I remember specifically when I met Q-Tip, he was wearing glasses, so I really couldn't tell if he was like really blown away or was like, "Yo, this dude is like, I gotta block this dude. He might be a stalker." Like, I don't. But it was like, I'll send the picture because I was like beaming. Like, I was like, finally. Yeah. Like,
I have one question though, because it's still in my mind, and I have to ask you this: playing Chrono Trigger while listening to the Shook Ones must made you feel so badass at that time.
It was such an interesting juxtaposition, because like, what does like saving Guardia Castle have to do with like the streets of Queens, New York? Like, I don't know what it was, but it's just like survival of the fittest, and like not in my head as I'm like beating Gato, the robot in the fair, Millennial Fair. Like, I don't know what the F I'm doing. Like, I don't know. But it's just one of those, like, my daughters really love, what is it, the Pixar movie Inside Out, and they talk about core memories and stuff. One of my core memories up in my brain is always going to be that summer sitting there listening to that on CD on my boombox in my room, playing the Chrono Trigger right before school, because it came out right in August, and I was like, damn, I gotta try to finish this game like in a week, because school starts at like right after Labor Day. So yeah,
power play, amazing. Awesome.
Hip hop is let me go back and say, hip hop has been so influential on me, and like the idea of like, I started using a drum machine or a sampler that was a drum machine, right? And I realized like, I'm sort of like, I'm a human sampler. Like, when I get around certain people, my wife always teases me because I'm really good at impressions. Let me see, I can do well, I was watching the Wu-Tang Clan had a TV series that, I don't know if you all watched that. It was like basically about how they came to be. And so one of the members is the RZA, you know what I'm saying? So I can imitate the RZA. But I can also do Bill Cosby. He's probably not the best person to imitate. Now, you see, because I was serving some jail time. Pudding pops.
Wow, this is a talent that I didn't know you had. This is amazing.
When ask that question to a woman these days, if you know what I'm saying. Oh, that's so bad. I feel like, Connor, you might need to edit that, but because it's just not very appropriate.
No, okay, leave that in.
Especially as a guy who has daughters, I'm like, that's not really appropriate. But anyway, I like being around different things and learning. I'm like a sponge. So I guess instead of saying sampler, I guess the best way to say it's like I'm a sponge. So like, and for me, in this current state of like where we are now with the advent of certain technology, like I know a lot of like people are like really abhor AI and how it's impacted the industry and art and stuff. I embrace it. Like I went and got a master's in audio technology because to me it's just a tool. So for me, it allows me to have somewhat level the playing field. Not to say I could ever replace tons of knowing how to score and compose and music theory, but AI has helped me kind of level the game to be able to work and create the way I want to create. Now, obviously, whether someone wants to hire me, that's on them. But I feel like if you've heard what I can do, you can be like, yo, that's pretty impressive. Like this dude has been able to like kind of just like teach himself and just learn. But don't think I'm like averse to learning. Like even at my age now, 44, I'm taking piano lessons and stuff. Like why? Because I want to learn how to be a better composer. I'm talking to Johnny, who is actually skilled composer and pianist, like, and gleaning stuff from him, and he's gleaning stuff from me, and it's great. It's a great thing, and I wouldn't even have this opportunity if I wasn't on this team at Proxima, which stemmed from just a casual conversation on LinkedIn and Harvey saying, hey, I'm creating a game studio. I was like, what the fuck? Like, can we talk? Like, and here we are. That literally was going to be my reaction, Harvey, at one point, but it was LinkedIn. I didn't want to be that,
you're a professional.
Crass.
Like,
sure. That sounds great.
To talk.
I really was like, what the fuck? Like, this is amazing. Can I be a part? Like, so thank you.
That's great.
You know what? This sounds crazy. I was thinking when you mentioned that just earlier, I can't lie. Like for the last couple of minutes in the back of my brain, I'm like, what am I going to say? I'd be a comedian. I think I'm a pretty funny dude. Like,
all right, I can see with the voices.
I don't know if I'd focus on impressions. I just think I'm a good storyteller, and I probably get that. And I'm very long winded, so I would definitely. It wouldn't be a problem for me to have a long set, like. But hopefully, I would
Netflix special.
Yeah, exactly. Either that or I would say a teacher, but I've been blessed enough to be able to teach, like and teach at like a college level, which has been great and also like scary because the students, they will call you out if they sniff some bullshit or like if you basically got to go in and act like even though you know a lot, you still got to be open to receiving what they have to offer. And I think that makes the exchange that much better as opposed to going in like, I have these degrees, and like laying out your whole CV and resume. Like they don't give a fuck about that shit. They just want to, especially in teaching media, they want to know you've been. They can be where you're at, and at the same time, like it behooves you to like what can you do to take where you're at and give back to them. Like that's how I see it, and I'm very fortunate to have been in that position. But a comedian, I guess that sounds so. That's weird.
No, it sounds great.
But I will close this out and just say, aside from go to Proxima.studio, buy some merch, check us out. We have a game that should be wish listed on Steam, right?
No, definitely let us know if you don't like it or why you don't like it. Just make sure that you have constructive criticism because we all know how the internet goes and people just go, this.
Right.
This is rubbish, and then they leave. There's nothing else to it. So we need to know why you think it's rubbish, if you think it's rubbish, so we can actually make it better. Because this is kind of how we want to actually build a company, to make sure that we always constantly listening to feedback so we can do things better as we go.
And also, the last thing I'll say is one thing that I really want to do on the show, so I don't always have to. Well, I mean, even on now, I'm usually leave or in with the if in another world you would be. We want to hear do you all have any questions that we can answer like on the show? So please, like, that's why it's important to find us on X or Twitter, I don't know, whatever Elon is calling it these days, and other social media places, our Discord. Please, like, if you have, like, because as you can hear, every week I'm literally getting so much insight I'm somewhat of a noob in this industry, so it's awesome, and I would love to, if you have questions too, send them in so we can answer them. We can ask and answer them as well.
Absolutely.
I'll say
Cool.
what I usually say. We love playing games as much as we love making them. So we do this show for you all, for us, for the players. And speaking of imitating people and picking up on mannerisms, this is one thing I love when Harvey says this. Not only because it's usually the end of our conversations and stuff, but it's just his thing when he's like, "All right, fellas, I'll leave you be." And I know I just made you sound a little bit more like Jean-Claude Van Damme, but I'll get your accent down at some point, I promise.
Oh yeah, so in that case, yeah, because this is not Kyle's. This episode is not Kyle's episode, right? It's supposed to be like Kyle's being interviewed. So yeah, on that note, thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll leave you guys be. See you on the next one. Peace.